The first thing you learn in the self-storage business is that people abandon their units. They stop paying, stop answering calls, stop caring about whatever they locked behind a roll-up door 3 years ago. It's the most common event in the industry. Happens every month. The second thing you learn is that some units never get abandoned. The payments keep coming, year after year, even when no one ever visits. You don't question it. A paying customer is a paying customer. But Unit 31 is different. Unit 31 has been paid through the year 2089. And the man who rented it has been dead since 1997. My name's Pete Cisneros. I've managed the Storage Plus facility on East Colba Road in Tucson for 6 years. 84 units, desert air and padlocks, the kind of place people forget about, including usually the people who rent from us. I found the anomaly during a routine billing audit in March. Our software flags irregular payment structures. Most tenants pay monthly. A few pay quarterly. Rarely, someone pays a year in advance. Unit 31 was flagged because the system couldn't display the payment end date. The field wasn't long enough. When I pulled the raw account data, I understood why. The account showed a prepaid balance extending to December 2089, 63 years from now. At $28 per month, that's over $21,000 deposited in structured payments across 3 decades, all from a single trust account. The rental agreement was signed on October 3rd, 1994, the day the facility opened. The renter's name was Dale Whitfield. I looked him up that afternoon. Dale Whitfield died on February 9th, 1997. Single vehicle accident on State Route 83, south of Tucson. He was 54. No wife, no children, no surviving family listed in the county records. He'd been dead for 28 years. His storage unit had been paid every single month the entire time. The payments came from the Whitfield Revocable Trust, established August 1993 and held at a credit union in Tucson. I called them. The account officer confirmed the trust was active, in good standing, auto-drafting on the 1st of each month. I asked who the current trustee was. The original trustor was the sole trustee, she said. Dale Whitfield. He's deceased. We're aware. The trust is structured to self-execute without an active trustee. The payment instructions are part of the founding document. What happens when the account runs out? The current projected depletion date is December 2089. Has anyone added money to the account since the trustor's death? She put me on hold. When she came back, her tone had shifted flatter, more careful. There have been 3 supplemental deposits in 2004, 2011, and 2019. Who made them? Cash deposits made in person at the branch. Under whose name? The trust account name, Whitfield Revocable Trust. Someone had walked into that credit union 3 times across 15 years in person, with cash to make sure Unit 31 stayed paid. 7 years after Dale Whitfield died, then 14 years, then 22. I asked if they had teller records or identification logs. She said she'd escalate the request. She never called me back. That night, after closing, I walked out to Unit 31. Nothing about the exterior would make you look twice. Except one thing. The concrete approach pad had been poured twice. A second layer over the original, extending about 18 inches past the door line. I've walked past all 84 units 1,000 times. Only Unit 31 had a double slab. I knelt down and ran my hand across it. The second pour was smoother than the original professional work, not a patch job. It wasn't a repair. It was a reinforcement. I'd find out why later. The answer would be worse than the question. The padlock was old, heavy-duty, brass body, surface oxidation from decades of Arizona sun. But the keyway was clean, bright metal in the channel. Someone had been using it. I pulled up the access log on my phone. Our gate system records every code entry. Which code? What time? What date? Unit 31's assigned access code was still active. It had been entered 312 times since we installed the current gate system in 2018. 312 entries in 6 years, almost exactly once a week. I checked the timestamps, always Thursdays, always between 1 a.m. and 3 a.m. Someone was visiting a dead man's storage unit every Thursday night, using his access code for at least 6 years. Arizona law allows facility operators to inspect units with 48 hours written notice for maintenance or safety reasons. I posted notice on Monday. On Wednesday evening, after the last tenant left, I cut the padlock. The door rolled up with a sound like a slow exhalation. Air pushed out, not the blast of trapped desert heat you'd expect from a sealed metal box in Tucson. This was different. Moist, dense, warm in a way that felt biological, like opening a door to a room where someone had been sleeping for a long time. I turned on my flashlight. The unit was not full of storage. It was a workstation. Against the left wall, a folding table, a camp chair, and a battery-powered LED lantern. The lantern was recently charged. The indicator light was still green. Against the back wall, 3 heavy-duty plastic storage bins, lids sealed, stacked neatly. On the table, a clipboard with a pencil on a string, the kind you'd find in a mechanic's shop. The clipboard held a log sheet, 2 columns of handwritten numbers with dates running down the left margin. The columns were labeled surface and deep. The most recent entry was dated 5 days ago. Surface, 94.2 degrees Fahrenheit. Deep, 97.6 degrees Fahrenheit. I opened the first bin, notebooks, dozens of them. Composition books, spiral-bound yellow legal pads stacked chronologically. The oldest was dated October 1994. The newest was from the current year. Every one of them was filled with the same 2-column data. Surface temperature, deep temperature, recorded weekly, every Thursday, without a single gap, for 31 years. I picked up the first notebook. The handwriting was blocky, precise engineer's print. Dale Whitfield's, presumably. The entries ran from October 1994 through January 1997. Surface readings fluctuated with the season's high 90s in summer, low 50s in winter, normal for Tucson. The deep readings did not fluctuate. They hovered between 96.8 and 97.4, regardless of month, regardless of what the desert was doing above. A straight line through every season. I flipped to February 1997. The last entry in Dale's hand was February 6th, 3 days before his death. The next entry was dated March 13th, 1997, 5 weeks later. Different handwriting, smaller, neater, slanted slightly to the right. But the format was identical. Surface, deep, date, no explanation, no note, no transition, just the data, continuing as if nothing had changed. Someone had taken over within weeks of Dale's death. The monitoring hadn't stopped. It had been inherited. I opened the second bin. Survey equipment, a professional-grade thermocouple probe, a digital data logger, coils of insulated cable, a hand-cranked bore auger, and a folded set of geological survey maps marked with Dale Whitfield's initials. The equipment was clean, recently maintained. The data logger had a power indicator showing full charge. Then I opened the third bin, a single object, wrapped in canvas cloth, heavy, about the size of a wine bottle. When I lifted it, I nearly dropped it. It was warm, not room temperature warm, not sun-baked metal warm, body temperature warm, the kind of warm that makes you pull your hand back because your nervous system registers it as alive before your brain catches up. I unwrapped it carefully. Inside was a steel core sample cylinder, sealed at both ends with industrial epoxy, the kind geologists use to preserve subsurface boring samples. A label on the side, handwritten, yellowed with age. KOLB-31/depth, 28 feet/date, October 11th, 1988. A core sample taken from 28 feet beneath where I was standing. 37 years ago, still warm, sealed in a metal tube for nearly 4 decades, and still radiating heat like a living thing. I put it back, closed the bin, stood up. My hands were shaking, and I couldn't identify why. Nothing I'd seen was threatening. Nothing was dangerous. It was just data and equipment and a warm metal tube in a storage unit in Tucson. But the air in Unit 31 felt wrong. It was too warm, too humid, and it pressed against my skin with a weight that had nothing to do with weather. Then I saw the cable. A black insulated wire, pencil diameter, ran from the thermocouple unit on the table down across the floor to the back left corner. There, it disappeared into a small hole, drilled cleanly through the concrete slab, bored straight down, sealed around the edges with fresh silicone caulk. Still pliable, applied within the last few weeks. The cable went into the ground. I went back to the table and powered on the data logger. The screen lit up. Real-time readout. Channel 1, depth, 18.0 feet. Temp, 97.6 degrees Fahrenheit. I pulled out my phone. Average ground temperature for Tucson, Arizona, at 18 feet below the surface. 67 to 72 degrees Fahrenheit, depending on season. Stable. Predictable. That's the whole principle behind geothermal engineering. The deeper you go, the less the temperature changes. 97.6 was not ground temperature. It was blood temperature. Something 18 feet below this slab was holding steady at 97.6 degrees Fahrenheit. And according to Dale Whitfield's 31 years of notebooks, it had been doing so within a narrow band of half a degree since at least October 1988. I stood in the unit and stared at the number on the screen. The digit didn't waver, didn't cycle, just held 97.6. Then I noticed something I'd missed in the earliest notebook. A margin note in Dale's handwriting, dated November 1988, circled twice in pencil. Depth at contact, 31 feet. I looked at the data logger again. Current depth, 18 feet. In 1988, the surface of whatever this was had been at 31 feet. The probe now read it at 18. 13 feet of rise in 36 years, roughly 4 inches per year. Whatever was down there was moving upward. I didn't sleep that night. I sat at my kitchen table and started digging. I began with the parcel itself. Pima County property records are searchable online. The land under the Storage Plus facility has changed hands 6 times since 1962. Residential lot, failed subdivision, tax default, county auction. And then In 1987, it was purchased by a development company called Rincon Partners LLC for a proposed retail center. The development permit application included an environmental survey contracted to the Arizona Department of Environmental Quality. The assigned surveyor was Dale Whitfield. Dale was a geologist, 12 years at the DEQ subsurface contamination assessment, landfills, mining sites, chemical spills, the kind of work nobody notices until something goes wrong. He filed his survey report in January 1989. I obtained it through a public records request. It took 4 days to arrive. When I read it, I understood why Dale had spent the rest of his life watching this piece of ground. The report described an anomalous subsurface thermal signature centered beneath the northeast quadrant of the parcel. Ground-penetrating radar indicated a dense, laterally continuous formation, beginning at approximately 31 feet below the surface. The formation did not correspond to any known geological stratum in the Tucson basin. Its thermal output, measured via borehole thermometry at 3 points, was consistently and significantly elevated above expected ground temperature. Dale recommended the parcel be classified as an environmental exclusion zone pending further investigation. The recommendation was denied. The review board noted that the anomaly did not indicate contamination, posed no identified health risk, and did not meet exclusion thresholds. The parcel was cleared. Rincon Partners never built. They pulled out for financial reasons. The land sat empty for 5 years. But here's what the property records show next. In 1991, the parcel's tax assessment was quietly reclassified from commercial retail to commercial storage. The reclassification request was filed by a private party. I checked the filing. The petitioner was Dale Whitfield. He'd left the DEQ in 1990, but he was still managing this parcel, steering it toward a use that would give him permanent ground-level access to the northeast quadrant, a storage facility with a unit he could rent, directly above his borehole. In 1993, he established the trust. In early 1994, a national self-storage company selected the Kolb Road parcel for a new facility. A consulting invoice in the permitting package confirmed it. Dale had been retained as geological consultant during site selection. He'd recommended this parcel. He'd spent 4 years maneuvering a piece of desert into exactly the right kind of building, in exactly the right place, so he could rent a 10 by 10 box directly above a borehole he'd drilled in 1988. The facility opened October 3rd, 1994. Dale rented Unit 31 that morning. He set up his monitoring station, and he watched for 3 years, until the night his car left State Route 83 at 60 miles per hour and rolled into a drainage wash. The accident report listed no mechanical failure, no other vehicle, no adverse weather, no alcohol, just a single-car fatality at 2:30 in the morning, a Thursday morning, driving south on 83, the direction of the facility. At the same hour, he always came. Dale Whitfield didn't die going home. He died on his way to take a reading. But someone had replaced him immediately. The handwriting change in March 1997, 5 weeks after the accident, and the 312 gate entries every Thursday for 6 years. I pulled the security footage, filtered for Thursday nights, B-row. The same car every time. Tan Subaru Outback, early 2000s model, Arizona plates. The driver was a woman mid-60s, short gray hair, small canvas kit bag. She never looked at the cameras, not like she was avoiding them. like they were furniture. I decided to be there on the next Thursday. At 1:22 a.m. on a warm April night, I was sitting in my truck in the facility lot with the headlights off when the tan Outback turned in from Kolb Road. She parked, got out, started walking toward the gate. I stepped out of my truck. She stopped. She didn't startle, didn't tense. She looked at me the way you'd look at something you'd been expecting for a long time. "You're the current manager," she said. "Pete Cisneros." "How much do you know?" "I've read the notebooks. I've seen the probe. I found the core sample. I pulled Dale's DEQ report." She looked at Unit 31's door, then back at me. Her expression wasn't hostile. It was exhausted, tired, in a way that had nothing to do with sleep. "My name is Ruth Okada. Dale and I were colleagues at the DEQ. I co-surveyed the Kolb Road parcel with him in 1988. I've been continuing his monitoring since he died. For 28 years. Yes, every Thursday." She almost smiled. "Dale picked Thursdays. I never changed it." "The cash deposits to the trust," I said. 2004, 2011, 2019. That was you. Cash because it can't be traced back to me. In person, because the trust requires a physical signature. I didn't want my name attached to Dale's account. Not because of the money, because of what the money was for. That answered one question and opened another. She wasn't hiding from the law. She was hiding from anyone who might ask what she was monitoring. I asked her what was under the building. She leaned against the block wall. "In '88, we drilled a borehole where Unit 31 is now. Sent down a thermocouple array. We expected a thermal vent. What we got back wasn't geological. Geological heat is constant. This had cycles, temperature rising over months, falling, rising. One full cycle every 14 to 16 months. Like breathing. Like breathing, yes. And the core sampled the material. Dale sent fragments to 3 labs, 2 inconclusive. The third identified it as biological in origin, species unidentified. They wanted to know where it came from. Dale never responded. She reached into her bag and handed me a folded printout, a topographic overlay, creased soft from years of handling. I unfolded it under the parking lot lights. The Storage Plus footprint was outlined in red. Beneath it, rendered in thermal gradient, was a shape. Not a pocket, not a vein, an oval, roughly 1,200 feet on the long axis, 800 across. The storage facility sat on the northern edge, Unit 31 at the densest point of the boundary. I looked at the scale and felt my stomach drop. The southern boundary extended under the commercial strip on Valencia, the tire shop, the taco restaurant, the laundromat. "The probe at 18 feet, I said. "That's at the edge." "The perimeter? The center is approximately 40 feet deeper. At its thickest, 70 to 80 feet down, convex, tapered at the edges. Biological, a quarter-mile wide, 18 feet below us, and rising. Is it dangerous?" Dale spent 9 years trying to answer that. He never could. "What happens in 2089? She folded the printout. "The boundary reaches ground level. Whatever has been compressed at depth is no longer at depth." Dale didn't know what that means. Neither do I. But he spent everything he had making sure someone would be watching when it happened. I asked about the double slab. Her expression changed, not fear. Something older. In 2006, the slab cracked. 2-foot fissure right down the center. Split from the inside. The edges were warm. Something pushed up. I had it repoured thicker. Rebar, cash, no paper trail. It's held since. She picked up her bag. I'm 73, Pete. I've been doing this since March of '97. Before that, Dale. Before that, nobody for however many thousands of years. It's been down there. She looked at me. Check last week's reading against tonight's. You'll see what I mean. Then she got in her car and left. I rolled up the door, turned on the data logger, 97.8 degrees Fahrenheit. I checked the clipboard, last Thursday's entry, in Ruth's handwriting, 97.6, the week before, 97.4, before that, 97.2. I went through the notebooks. For 30 years, 3 full decades, the deep reading had cycled between 96.8 and 97.4, oscillating on its slow 14-month rhythm. That was the established band. Dale had documented it meticulously. The formation breathed within that range, and it never left it. The current readings were outside the band, and they were climbing. I pulled the last 8 entries from the clipboard. In early February, the readings were in the low 90s normal range, inside the established band. By late February, 97.1. Early March, 97.2. Then 97.4. Then 97.6. Then last Thursday's 97.8. 7 weeks, 9/10 of a degree of climb. In 30 years, the formation had never moved more than 6/10 across an entire cycle. The curve was steepening. Dale's model projected 2089. That projection assumed linear growth 4 inches per year, consistent thermal band, steady behavior. The formation wasn't behaving that way anymore, and nobody was recalculating. Ruth didn't come the following Thursday, or the one after that. I drove to the address on her vehicle registration, a small house near the university, Midtown, Tucson. A neighbor told me she'd moved out 2 weeks earlier, sold the house through a broker, cash transaction, closed in 6 days, no forwarding address. Ruth Okada was gone. She hadn't passed the work to me. She hadn't explained the handoff. She'd answered my questions, told me to check the readings, and disappeared. The same way you'd hand someone a flashlight in a dark room and walk out. I stood in her empty driveway for a while. Then I did something Ruth probably never did. I drove to the center. Ruth's thermal overlay showed the formation's densest point, directly beneath a strip mall on East Valencia, about a quarter-mile south of my facility. Saturday morning. I parked in the lot between the tire shop and the taco restaurant and got out. It was April in Tucson. The asphalt should have been warm. It was hot. Not sun hot, the kind of heat that comes up through your shoes from below. I knelt and put my palm on the pavement. The surface temperature had to be 15 degrees higher than the lot across the street. The tire shop had a strip of landscaping along the building. The plants were wrong desert lavender blooming 6 weeks early, agave pushing pups at a rate I'd never seen. The soil was doing something to everything above it. I walked the entire strip. At the south end, between the laundromat and a vacant lot, a small self-storage facility. 20 units, A2Z storage. Built in the late 80s, older than ours. I walked in and talked to the attendant. I asked a question I already suspected the answer to. Do you have any units that have been rented continuously since the facility opened? She looked at me. Unit K, paid up since before I started here, before my boss started. We don't even have a working key for it. Who rents it? She checked the system, frowned. Says it's under a trust, the Whitfield Revocable Trust. 2 monitoring posts, not 1. I spent the following week pulling rental agreements from every self-storage facility within 2 miles. I called 12 facilities. Most thought I was running some kind of scam. 2 cooperated. South Wilmot Road, Unit 14, Whitfield Revocable Trust, prepaid through December 2089. The manager faxed me the original agreement, Dale's signature, same date, October 1994, East Irvington Road, Unit 22, same trust, same structure. The manager there told me something the others hadn't. We had a city crew out here last year. Water main repair. They dug a trench along the south wall. The foreman told me the soil temperature was off. Said in 20 years of trenching, he'd never felt dirt that warm at 4 feet. 4 feet. The formation's boundary was at 18 feet in 1988. If it had been rising 4 inches per year, by last year it could be at, I did the math, 16 feet. And its thermal output would radiate upward. A city crew had felt it through the soil and written it off as odd. 4 storage units, 4 facilities. I plotted them on a map. North, my facility, Unit 31. South, Irvington Self-Store, Unit 22. East, Wilmot Mini Storage, Unit 14. West, A2Z Storage, Unit K. I overlaid Ruth's thermal map. The 4 units sat on the boundary of the oval formation, north, south, east, west, a perimeter grid. Dale hadn't just built a monitoring post. He'd built a surveillance system around the edges of something a 1/4 mile wide, and he'd funded it for 95 years, projected 4 inches per year. Steady, linear. But his model was built on 5 years of data. He'd projected it forward nearly a century. He didn't account for acceleration. That was 5 weeks ago. I've thought about calling someone. The USGS. The geology department at U of A. But what would I say? There's something warm underground? They'd want to drill. And I don't know what happens when you punch a bore into the center of something biological that's been rising for 36 years. Dale had the same data. He chose to watch, not dig, not drill, watch. I go to Unit 31 every Thursday now. I take the reading. I write it in the notebook. I check the probe, the logger, the cable seal. 2 weeks ago, I noticed something in the floor of the unit. A hairline crack in the concrete. New. About 14 inches long, running from the back left corner toward the center of the slab toward the cable hole. The same thing Ruth described from 2006. The same type of fracture. Warm at the edges. Last Thursday, 98.4. A full degree above anything Dale ever recorded in 30 years of monitoring. The increments are getting larger. The slab is cracking again, and Ruth, the woman who came every Thursday for 28 years without missing once, saw these numbers starting to climb and sold her house in 6 days. She didn't retire from the vigil. She ran from it. I went to Unit 31 tonight. I took the reading, 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit. I stared at the number for a long time. Then I checked it again, then a 3rd time. The data logger doesn't lie. The thermocouple doesn't lie. The cable runs 18 feet straight down into the boundary of something I will never see and cannot name. And the number on the screen is the number on the screen. 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit. The exact temperature of the living human body. I don't know what that means. Maybe it means nothing. Maybe it's a coincidence, a number passing through a range on its way somewhere higher. Maybe next week it'll read 98.8, and I'll stop thinking about it. But I don't think I'll stop thinking about it, because after I logged the reading and put the pencil back on its string, I did something I've done every visit since the first time. I knelt down and placed my palm flat on the concrete floor of Unit 31. I tell myself I'm checking for warmth through the slab, confirming what the instruments show, being thorough. But that's not why I do it. I do it because 3 weeks ago, I felt something. A pulse. Faint, impossibly slow. One compression, one beat, if that's what it was, across roughly 40 seconds. Not traffic vibration, not a water main, not the building settling. A single deep, slow pressure that came up through the reinforced concrete, through the packed desert earth, through 18 feet of Arizona substrate, and pressed against my palm, like something pushing back from underneath. I felt it again tonight, the same rhythm, the same depth, the same slow, patient interval. 40 seconds between beats. Something under Tucson is breathing. It has been breathing for longer than anyone has been measuring. It is warm and vast and rising, and it has hit body temperature, and it is still climbing. Dale watched it for 3 years. Ruth watched it for 28. I have been watching it for 5 weeks. The three of us, a geologist, a surveyor, and a storage facility manager, are the only people in 36 years who know it's here. Ruth is gone. Dale is dead. I'm sitting in a folding chair in a 10 by 10 metal box at 2 a.m., feeling something pulse beneath my hand, and trying to decide what to do with knowledge that no one will believe and no one can act on. The trust runs out in 2089, but the curve isn't linear anymore. The numbers are climbing. The rhythm is steady. The thing beneath me is patient and warm and close. And for the first time in 31 years of monitoring, it has matched us. 98.6 body temperature. I close the unit. I replace the lock. I write the number down. And I come back on Thursday.